Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today it's time for another Q&A video. So if you've watched my channel before, you'll notice that I've done similar videos in the past. I've done 3 Q&A videos, so this is the 4th one on the channel. We've got 10 more questions, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so question number 1 is, I want to do my own work in terms of the portfolio, which you've mentioned about, but I don't have access to any software. What can I do? Okay, so good question. Good point, but I did touch upon this in a previous video when I gave tips about the portfolio in general. So you don't need to have expensive software to create a portfolio of work. A portfolio, or even, I don't know if this actually means for portfolio or if it means kind of freelancing. So the question can have a couple of different answers here. So in terms of, if it's just to kind of get a portfolio going, you don't need the software anyway. You can start by doing reports where you can just do them written reports. You can take screenshots of different parts of the video just from a normal video player to kind of show team shape, etc. You can, obviously take free trials of a lot of software now. So you can take a free trial of InPlay, for example, and that will obviously give you a free access for a month. And then even after then, you can get, signed up for as little as, well, under a tenner a month, basically. So there are affordable options out there. Yes, it would be ideal if you had the best of the best, but at the start you're not going to be able to get that, and that shouldn't put you off. So you do have access to free things, even if it is by free trials. Even if at the start you are just using other stuff in terms of whatever's free on your Mac in terms of cutting videos up. So iMovie, for example, I know people have used that. So you can find a way to do it if you really want to. And as I say, once you kind of work way up and then you find yourself in a job, you start earning money from your work, then you can maybe splash out and get a little bit more adventurous. But definitely, it's not a barrier to not start. You don't need expensive software. There's certainly things you can do without software, and there's definitely either free trials or very affordable stuff that you can use. Okay, so question number 2 is, I seen your recent post on LinkedIn about going freelance. Sounds interesting. How would I even start? Okay, so that is a good question. So, this is a tough one. That was a very actually interesting point that I put out on LinkedIn. I basically posed a question: would you rather work for X amount of money in a club, or would you rather work for that same amount of money but as a freelancer? I think the club won out in the end, but there was some very good points. Some people commented on there and kind of chipped in their opinions. So, freelancing is not for everyone. When you initially start, I probably wouldn't recommend just quitting your job and starting freelancing. It's something that you can build up on the side. But if you are wanting to start, how to go about that, I think it would come from networking. Networking would play a big part in that. So if you're ever going to earn money from clubs and organizations as a freelancer, you've got to kind of make the connections and kind of, get to know different people in different jobs. They're not just going to pay you if they don't know who you are, for example. So that comes from, again, creating this image of you're portraying what you can offer them by creating a portfolio of work, but then networking, speaking to these people, seeing what they need, maybe even offering to work for free or do a project for free to show them that you are kind of useful and what you can bring to the table. And then if they're happy with the work, then obviously then they will probably then be positioned where they can actually pay you for that work. And then it'd be a case of, once you've got a client, you can then use them as a case study to then try and get another client, and then you can kind of build up your freelance client, so to speak. Obviously a lot easier said than done, but again, something, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So it's definitely worthwhile. But I think one factor for freelancing would definitely be networking, getting yourself out there and getting yourself seen and known. Okay, so the next question, a little bit off topic, is on the World Cup. So what are my predictions on the World Cup in terms of England and who will win? Okay, so I'm filming this on the 30th of November. So actually there's a game on right now, which is Argentina and Poland. So last night, England obviously qualified for the knockouts, and they will now play Senegal in the last 16. So before today, maybe would have said I think we'll beat Senegal and then maybe come unstuck against France. France didn't have the greatest result today. I didn't see the game actually because I was busy working. But France are obviously a great team. I think they will obviously be the favourites against England if we do meet France in the quarters. And I think that's where a lot of people are kind of seeing where our journey in this particular World Cup might end. So I don't know. I think we might surprise some people, maybe. But I think if I was a betting man and I had to predict, I would probably say a final of France and Brazil. So who knows? Let's wait and see. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully England go all the way and we get all the way. And obviously, first time since '66, which would be an absolutely fantastic achievement. So that's my World Cup prediction, if it's like any other football prediction, it will probably be miles off. So don't take anything from that at all. So okay, so question number 4 is, do you have any advice for me? I'm struggling to find jobs within my location, and I think this is a limiting factor for me. So, okay, it's a good point, good question, and an unfortunate situation to be in. Depending on where you live in the country, you know, you might not actually be very close to many clubs. So you've got to then make the decision is, are you just going to limit yourself to that particular 3 or 4 clubs, maybe it's not even that, around your commutable distance, or are you going to be willing to kind of move away to the other side of the country if a job was to come up? So, you know, there's a lot of factors to answer this. Are you, you know, do you own property in a particular part of the country that you can sell, or are you just, you know, living at home after finishing university? Do you have a family? Do you have any children and, you know, a partner, etc.? So again, all of them things are going to play a part in this. I think when you first leave uni, or at least how I felt when I first left university, was when I was looking for a job, I would have gone anywhere for a job. I didn't really care. So I think if you really want to work in analysis, I think it's hard enough anyway to not then say, actually, I only want to work in analysis within this 100-mile radius, because you're not going to get very far. You know, there's going to be lots of other people in that area, and there's also going to be people that are potentially better than you that are willing to move from the other side of the country to your area. So I think you will always limit yourself. You've got to ask yourself then, you know, is this actually what you want to do if you're not prepared to kind of move away for it? Because again, it can be a job where, you know, you might move away for a season or so, but then you can always still be on the lookout for a job closer to home. So, you know, you don't have to, if you go to the other side of the country, it's not as though you're going to have to go down there and straight away buy a house in that particular part of the world. You can just rent, for example, see if you like the actual area, see if you like the job. If you do and you want to put roots down there, you might find yourself buying down there, or, you know, there's no problem going down there, getting a job, you're in the industry, you've got the foot in the door, but then you can keep your eye out for other jobs in different areas and maybe closer to home. So, tough one. I think it all depends on how much you want it, really. If you are limiting yourself to a particular location, you might then struggle, because there's only going to be a number of jobs that come up. And there's always, you know, there's always chance to come back if you do move away. So again, probably not the greatest answer, but that's kind of my input on that one. So the next question is, do you have any tips for networking? So yes, I do. And I think networking is probably the thing that goes the most underrated when working within sport. So, you know, whenever I hire anyone, I will always look at the references. I will always then check with them, because half the time I will know someone listed as a reference. I can give them a call, speak to them, and ask how you, or, you know, a particular person is, and how they did at their job, and how they are day to day. So I think networking is a massive thing. Networking can open so many doors. You know, so if you've made an impression on a particular person by doing them a bit of work on the side, you know, you've done some work experience for them, and you make a good impression, that, you know, they obviously now know about you, which is obviously fantastic. If something comes up along the, you know, in the future, they will more likely to be able to recommend you for that particular job. So in terms of tips for networking, I would say, I've obviously mentioned this lots and lots of times before, but get yourself on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you are missing a massive trick. So get yourself on LinkedIn, optimize your profile. I do have a video on that, which you can do that. And then just start interacting. Don't spam out loads of messages, and don't spam messages. Just, can I have a job? Have you got a job? Can you check my CV? You know, don't just spam things. Try and offer something in return. So if you're going to network with someone, maybe go on their profile, take a look. They might have some things on their profile. They might have done something recently. You can comment on that, drop them a polite message and say, you know, hey Chris, I noticed, you know, I like your recent video on X, Y, and Z. What were your thoughts on this? And then I'm more likely to reply to that, rather than you just saying, Chris, have you got any jobs, for example? And I think that comes across as a bit rude and abrupt as well. So I think if you're kind of showing that you have an interest in them, and also if you've got something to offer as well. So maybe if you're in that stage where you're looking for a job and you're trying to network, you can look at the profile, you can put something like I've just said there, in terms of, you know, hey, I noticed you did, you know, a piece of work on this. I thought it was very interesting. I've also done a piece of work on something similar. You know, it'd be great to kind of share ideas with you, for example, but also I'd be open to doing any kind of work on the side, just to kind of learn from you for a little bit of time, if anything like that would come up. If not, no problem. Great to connect. I look forward to kind of following along with any more content that you're going to put out. So, you know, don't be too pushy. Just be polite. Just like general. If you're going to meet someone in the street, you wouldn't just ask them straight away if they've got a job going, for example. You would probably at least try and get to know them a little bit more. So that goes for networking. And as I say, networking, massively, massively underrated. Most, you know the saying of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think in sport that is very, very much so the case. So definitely take networking seriously if you do want to create a career in the sports industry. Okay, so that's 5 questions done. So before I get on to the next 5, I just want to quickly ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Scroll up, hit the like button, hit the bell notification if you haven't already as well. That way you will be notified whenever I post a new video. So all the support is welcomed up until now. The channel's growing nicely. I'm really enjoying doing the videos. So like I say, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It massively helps the channel to grow. Okay, so question number 6 is, do you have any tips on how to design and create a CV other than on Microsoft Word? So yes, this is a great point. So I think back in the day when I did a CV, I actually did mine on Adobe InDesign, because I think when I used to have that at the club that I worked at the time, and we had access to InDesign, so it's like, obviously that's the Adobe suite, it costs money, it's not free, so you might not have that. However, there's a great tool called Canva. Whether you've heard of it or not, you should definitely check that out. So Canva is totally free, you can sign up, and it allows you to basically design different things, from leaflets to, I do all my thumbnails on there, things like that. Anything design-wise, you can do it on Canva. There's loads of things you can do on there, and it's really, really easy to use. It's absolutely amazing product. So you can definitely do a CV on Canva, so it'll make it look very nice. You can, add different concepts to design it how you want it to look. There's probably actually templates on there as well for CV. So definitely check Canva out. It's free, as I've mentioned, and it will help your CV to stand out. As I've said, I've spoke about CVs in the past numerous times. I have a whole video on CV. So, if you're gonna stand out from the rest of a pile of CVs this thick, at least make it look like it's a little bit different to everyone else's. So Canva is a great way you can do that, basically. So question number 7 is, what are your current thoughts on football, VAR, etc., in terms of the modern game? Okay, so I'll try and answer this without going on too much of a rant. So, and I'm basing this off obviously the World Cup as well, being quite prominent at the moment. So VAR, I don't really have an issue with, let me just rephrase that. So on the whole, VAR is good. Obviously, we want to get decisions correct, etc. I think the whole process of slowing the game down will likely be improved. So I think that's an area for improvement. But one thing with that, I don't really understand why they only check certain things. So for example, we were talking about this the other day when we were watching the football, actually, on the last England game, is when a corner is given when it shouldn't be a corner, for example, or a goal kick, in terms of a debatable decision that way, that isn't checked. Now, it's obviously deemed that it's not an important decision, but obviously a corner can lead to a goal, or, it could lead to someone getting injured defending that particular corner, for example. So to me, it's just as important, and there's that ripple effect that comes from that. So I would like them to check that. It would only take them a split second. You see 7 or 8 guys in a room now with manning the VAR control. So it's not going to be a big burden on them just to quickly say, actually that wasn't a corner ref, and then he can change his mind on the field. So that's one thing. I think one thing I'm going to say, which could be very controversial here, is, and I've said this for a while, I would much prefer if, obviously we've seen a lot in the World Cup now with the 10 minutes added on, 14 minutes added on, etc. And the games are, really, really long because of this time wasting that we're seeing more and more of. So I would much rather see a stop clock, so similar to like a basketball. So every time the ball is out of play, the clock is, stopped. So whether it's 2 30-minute halves, I don't know how it would work. I don't know how long that would produce a game to be. But I think that would basically get rid of, it would definitely get rid of time wasting, which is not something that's very entertaining in the current game. So that's my opinion. I don't know. That might be absolutely stupid. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think a stop clock would benefit football. Okay, so the next question is regarding when a new manager comes into a club. So is there anything that an analyst can do when a new manager actually comes into the role? So I think this is a good point, actually, because I've mentioned this before, where some managers will bring in their own analysts. So you might be a bit nervous as to whether you're still going to be in a job. For example, if a manager comes in and he's got 2 analysts that he always works with, obviously that might spell the end for you, for example. He might not want you in, he might bring his own guys in, but that's not always the case. Not every manager brings their own analyst, and even if they do, there still might be a place for you if you can add value. So, if I was in a club and a new manager came in, I would make it I would go out my way to actually speak to the manager, obviously to let him know who you are and what you currently offer in the club, and obviously just make him aware that you're there for, obviously as an analyst or a coach, you're there to work for the manager effectively. So I think he needs to know who you are. Obviously you won't have a clue who you are before coming into the club. So if you're polite and you make yourself known to him, what you can do to make his life easier and what you're going to hopefully continue to do throughout the season, then he's more likely to then obviously respect you as well. So the added respect will definitely go a long way. But also just to, so you're not just sat there in the corner of the room with your laptop as, kind of out the way almost. So if you make him known make it known that you are an important part of the team, what you can offer, and if he sees value in that, then obviously he's more likely to be able to keep you within the squad. Okay, question number 9 is how to ask for a pay rise as an analyst. So I'm currently working pretty much 60 to 70 hours a week on 25 grand a year, which obviously you can work out is very much below the minimum wage. So this is a great point, and obviously it's a big debate that's currently going on. Well, it seems to have always been going on in the analysis industry. Low wages for a lot of work, which is very, very unfair. So I think if I was in this position, if I was working in a club and I was on that, that wage, and that's kind of the amount of hours I was working, obviously it would be my goal to try and increase that as much as I could, but I'd have to go about that in the right way. So I think the first thing I would do is try and make a plan of, or at least jot down everything that I'm doing. So what am I doing week by week? How much am I producing for the club, and what value is that bringing? And how many hours is it taking for each of those different things to actually be completed? Because a lot of the times, the work that an analyst does isn't kind of, I don't want to say valued, but sometimes, to create a presentation, a coach might not know how many hours you've spent you might have spent a whole day just to get 3 clips, but they see it as, well, it's only 3 clips, so it can't have taken that long. So, there's that. So they might not know exactly how much hours you're actually putting in. So I'd try and, make a list of everything you're doing, how you're adding value. If you can, try and find out what other people are on within your league or within your industry. So if you know that, 3 of your mates are at clubs doing the same job and they're all paid more than you, then that's, again, more evidence for you to say, look, I feel like, I'm producing X, Y, and Z. I think a more fairer, based on the amount of hours I'm working and the amount of content that I'm actually creating to help the club at the first team level, I feel like this wage would be more suitable. And if you can justify that, then that would actually be maybe listened to. Because I think you've got to factor in, a club probably won't want to replace you. If you're good, and if you're good at your job, the club won't want to replace you because they've got to go through the whole hiring. They've got to advertise for a job, they've got to go through interviews, then they're going to get someone in that they might not actually think is very good. They might not be as good as you, for example. So if they are happy with you and you are doing a great job, they will definitely more likely, or they would prefer to pay you a few grand more than have to get rid of you and bring someone else in that, again, would be unknown. So I think don't be afraid to do it. Go in and have the meeting with the manager, but go in prepared and be fair, be fair. I think the manager probably, if he's a nice guy, he's probably going to want the best for you as well. And if he respects you as a colleague, then he's probably going to then push, HR or whoever it is that makes the decisions to be able to give you, that little bit extra if you are worth it within the squad. So that's question number 9. Moving on to question number 10. So what are my thoughts on internships? Okay, so I'm going to base this on the fact of unpaid internships. I presume that's what this means. So this is, again, a topic that has gone on for however analysis has been a thing, really. So I think anyone within a job in analysis right now has probably done some form of unpaid work. Again, I've done unpaid work. I've done videos on that in the past. I think everyone agrees that a professional football club that's paying millions of pounds in transfers and tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pounds a week in wages to then ask for someone to work for free is pretty diabolical. So, I'm totally against that. I think the fact that clubs hire interns and promise a job at the end when there's never really a job because they're just going to get a fresh intern in, again, bang out of order. For me, I think internships shouldn't need to last a year. You shouldn't have to work for free for a year unless you're going through different departments within the club. You can learn enough within 3 to 6 months. You don't need to be there for the full year, but obviously the club wants you there for the full year because it's free labour. So I think for me is an internship should be more structured rather than just being you come in and work for free. Let's actually have it as more like an apprenticeship where you go through modules. So you are actually going in there and you're learning everything you need to learn. And then the club can then, obviously, if they're doing it properly and they're basically bringing you in as a novice and then teaching you all these skills, then why wouldn't they want to hire you in that place? So then it will hopefully get rid of them kind of just bringing another intern in. But even if it's not them that hired you, at least you will then be in a position to say, I did an internship at this club, I've learned all of these skills over the period of 3 to 4 months, and now I'm much more employable to go to another club, for example. So I think probably the main problem is the fact that there's that many, obviously it's so saturated now, there's that many people that want to be analysts. There's always going to be someone that's going to want to do it for free. So if a club can get someone to do it for free, why would they pay someone is their kind of argument to it. So, hopefully that is stopped, but again, I can't see it happening anytime soon. So like I said, everyone I probably know, I don't think I know anyone that works in analysis that hasn't worked for free. So maybe it's just one of them things where you just got to grit your teeth and do it. But as I've mentioned in other videos, you know, go into it with a plan. Don't just go in, coast along for a year and you say, okay, I worked at this club for a year. What did you actually learn? Actually go in and ask to do different skills. So you know personally that you've gone in, yes, you've worked for free, but at least you've come out with all of these skills that now, you know, you don't want to work unpaid for another year, you want to get a paid job. So at least get the skills that you need to then obviously put on your CV and prove that you can do them, along with a good CV, cover letter, portfolio of work, everything I mentioned before, and then you will be much more employable. So, okay, so that's 10 questions done and dusted. So that's the end for this video. So if you haven't already, like I've said, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.